I would like to write a program that reads through a string of letters, a bunch of letters, which I have here, eat pizza, and finds the first pair of double letters and the position of those double letters. So in my example right here, the first pair of double letters, and actually it's the only pair of double letters, would be ZZ, and that is found at position. Well, let's see. Remember, you start counting at 0, so E is at position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would like my output to say the first double is Z, found at position 6. But let's kind of work our way up to that. So I'm going to comment this out by now. And just to jog your memory, I'm going to run this as is, and let's just see what this writes. I mean, here I have a string, and I've declared a couple of other variables. Dub, I guess that's going to be my first double letters, and I initialize that to nothing. And then position I just set to 0 initially. So let's see. So if I just make a for loop that goes from 0, again, remember, strings start counting at position 0. And notice my x is starting at 0, but my x value is going less than the length of the string. And this is, again, something a little bit confusing to students. The length of this string is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The length of the string is 10. However, the positions are 0 through 9. That's why my for loop goes from 0 to less than the length. And then, of course, I'm incrementing. This says after I finish each time through the for loop, I'm going to add 1 to x. This is the same thing as saying x equals x plus 1. And just for testing purposes, I like to write a little bit of code and test it as I go. I'm going to have it write out the value of x. And actually, maybe I'll put x with a comma after it, just so you can kind of see what's going on there. So x with a comma after it. And I'm going to run this thing, and hopefully it will not be a surprise. I ran it, and it says 0, comma, all the way through 9 with a comma. Well, why did it do that? Because x is going from 0 to less than the length. Remember, we said the length is 10, so it's going less than the length. So that means my last value of x is going to be 9, right? So every time it goes through the loop, x is changing, and it writes out the current value of x with a comma after it. I have modified the code just slightly, and all I did was I changed the document.write, and let's just see what happens, and maybe we'll talk about it first. So I have the same exact for loop. I'm going from 0 to less than the length of the string, and this time I'm writing out the value of x. So again, that'll be 0 through 9. But then after that, I'm writing str, which is my string, of course, dot substring x comma x plus 1. Followed by a comma. So what does this give me? I know this is a confusing thing for students. Well, the way substring works is it gives you part of a string from a starting position up to but not including the ending position. So let's think about this for a moment. The first time through the for loop, the value of x is 0. So substring from position 0 to position 0 plus 1, which is 1. So this substring from 0 up to but not including position 1 will be the first letter of my string, which is E, right? This is position 0 at E. A would be position 1, but remember, substring gives you everything starting from this position up to but not including the second position. So this x to x plus 1 is only going to give me one single letter, right? And then as I go through the for loop, x now becomes 1. So substring x comma x plus 1 gives me the characters from 1 up to 1 plus 1, which is 2. So from 1 up to but not including 2, yes, when the loop repeats again, it will give me the second letter, which is an A. So let's just run this thing, and I don't think it'll be any big surprise. It writes out the position, which is 0, and then the letter at position 0, which is an E, and then 1, and A, of course, at position 1, and so forth, all the way to the very end. And of course, you know that this string is 10 characters long, but the last character is actually character number 9, and there it is, and it's an exclamation point. All right, I'm going to modify this again, and we'll take a look. This time I added this if statement. So again, I'm just going through my for loop, but this time it says if the substring from x to x plus 1, remember this is just one character, is equal to the substring from x plus 1 to x plus 2. Let's think about this. What is this actually saying? Well, let's make up a value for x. Let's pretend, and I'll even like write it on the side here. Let's pretend I've been going through my for loop for a while and x is 3. Can we do that? So if we're pretending that x is 3, this would be the substring from position 3 up to but not including 4. So in other words, this would be the character at position 3, which of course is 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, maybe 3 was a bad choice. It's a blank space. This, again, if x is 3, would be the character at position, well, 3 plus 1 is 4, 3 plus 2 is 5. So from 4 up to but not including 5 would be the character at position 4, which would be a p. So what is this really doing? I hope you're able to think about what it's really doing. What it's doing is it's comparing two characters that are next to each other. Whatever x is, like let's say x is 3, like I said in my example, this would be the character at position 3. This would be the character at position 4. Again, this is just one letter. This is also just one letter. Sometimes students are tempted to think that they should do this to compare two consecutive letters. Well, the problem is this is 2 letters, right? This would be, if x was 3, this would be the letters starting at 3 up to but not including 5. This would be letters 3 and 4. So that's definitely not what I want. This is the single letter that comes after this single letter. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's get rid of my x is 3 right here. So this is going to keep going through my for loop. And what's going to happen is when I find a letter that is equal to the next letter, I'm going to write out x. So again, x is not the letter, x is the position. So let me run this guy and let's see what happens here. Just refresh this thing. And yeah, okay, refresh it. And it says 6. Well, why does it say 6? Because at position 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I found a double letter. I've modified the code again. This time, this part is the same. The if statement is the same. So I'm looking for a character being equal to the following character. This time, if it is, I'm just remembering I made this variable called dub. I'm setting it equal to that first letter. And I'm remembering the position of that letter, which is x. So again, the goal of my program was to find the first pair of consecutive letters. In this case, it should be a z is consecutive, and it's at position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the first double. So I'm going to run this guy, and it says first double is z, found at position 6. That's awesome. That was my goal. Now, the only issue is if there happened to be another double, like if it said eat pizza at noon, let's say, is this going to work? I don't know. Let's give it a run. Wait a minute. First double is an O at position 14. But that's not the first double. That's the second double, right? If I go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, that's an O. So how am I going to get it to just hang on to that first double? That's what I want. I don't want it to remember the second double. Well, there's certainly more than one way to do this, but I'm going to do it by making another variable. And I'll make another variable, and I'll call it first. And I'll set that to false. Oops. Then in here, I'm going to say, I only want this to happen if, let's see, I'm going to say if first is equal to, oops, false, and hopefully this will make sense to you. Okay, so if first equals false and 2 letters in a row match, then I'm going to remember my double. But the other thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to set first, oops, I'm going to set first to true. Now let's see if that makes, I have to spell true correctly. Now let's see if that makes sense here. So this if statement is only going to happen if first is false. In other words, if I have not yet found my first double. And as soon as I do find my first double, I'm going to set first to true so that it won't go into this if statement again. It'll only happen once. All right, let me see if I can run this guy and let's see if it works. Oh my God, it worked. First double is Z, found at position 6. I'm just going to make one more modification to the code. So I returned the string, I just shortened it again just to eat pizza with an exclamation point. Remember, again, the length of this string is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The length of this string is 10, but the position of the last character is 9. That exclamation point is at position 9. So I'm just going to make one slight modification here. Now, JavaScript doesn't require that you do this, but it's really the correct way of doing it. I'm going from 0 to less than the length of the string -1. Well, why am I doing this -1? Because I'm looking at 2 characters at a time. The last X value that I want is really the position of the second to last character. So let's think about this for just one moment. Remember, this second to last character is at position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The last X value I want is 8, because if X is 8, substring from 8 to 9 gives me the letter that's at position 8. X plus 1 to X plus 2, remember if X is 8, this will give me the character at position 9 up to but not including 10, which of course is just 9. So because I'm looking a character ahead, the last X value that I want is really the position of the second to last letter. If I did not do this, if I did that, the last time through the for loop, I would actually be comparing the exclamation point to nothing, which is beyond it. JavaScript kind of lets you get away with it, but really it's correct to put that -1. I hope that makes sense why I'm doing that. Again, it makes it, you really should have that because of this right here. I'm looking at the character past X. So that's why I want my X value to be less than the length -1. Remember, the length is 10, -1 is 9, but I want it to be less than 9. And remember, my second to last character is actually position 8. So I hope that makes sense. I can run it again, and of course, I'm going to get the same output. You can't even tell the difference. But really, if you're looking ahead in characters, you want to add that -1. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you got something out of it. All right, get to work on your projects. Bye-bye.